All right, guys. Today we have a really special guest in the house. This man has really been through a lot in his life and turned his life around and is now helping the community. It's a very inspirational story. He's the executive director of the nonprofit 914 United. I'm talking about the one and only Jonathan Alvarez, aka J.O.
Good, bro. Good, bro. Thank you for having me.
You like going by Jonathan or J.O. or like what do you like going by?
It's a good question. It depends who's talking to me, right? But I'm comfortable with either way.
All right, cool. All right. Well, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. It's a cool Sunday. You know, had a long week, a lot going on, a lot of good things happening, a lot of motion.
Right, yeah, man. But I'm just so happy to have you on the platform today. So with my interviews, I like to start at the beginning, just so that the people can really understand you, like where you're from, who you are, and how you got to where you are today. So
Sure.
you're from Yonkers, right?
Yeah, I'm born and raised.
Born and raised. Okay. For those that never been to Yonkers, because you're from the South Side, is the South Side like the worst part?
I wouldn't say it's one of the worst parts. You know what
Okay,
I'm
so
saying?
it's
Because
one.
there's a lot of there's a lot of activity going on the north side, right? Like south side got two sections, southeast and southwest, but people might know it as like no downhill or like south side, like South Broadway, right? So it's funny that you asked that question because the south side is broken up into two sections, but people will only consider my side the south side.
Hmm. Did you grow up with any siblings?
Yeah. I got kind of got like a big group, right? So on my father's side, I got two half brothers that I kind of met when I was around like 8. I learned who they was when I was young. And then on my like mother's side, I got a half sister who I was, since the cradle with. And then I got like 5 stepbrothers that I
Wow.
grew up
Okay.
with. So, yeah.
But you guys weren't all growing up in the house together, though.
Nah, my 2 half brothers, they live with their mom in Long Island. Me and my sister kind of, from the cradle, we was together all the way through, until she moved out. Then my stepbrothers came around like age 4.
Got you. And are you Puerto Rican?
I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican.
Oh,
Or
okay.
best of
Yeah,
both
I kind
worlds.
of had a feeling. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't think he's full Puerto Rican. There's something telling me, yeah. But would you say the house was like very traditional in the sense of like a Latino home and everything?
Kinda like, so funny thing was that my pops and like he lived in a different house, right? So I had 2 homes I was like raising until I was 10. But where I lived at primarily with my mom, it was with my step pops, which is my stepbrother's father. And he's like a full Dominican, don't really speak English. My mom is a New York Rican, so like, yeah, we ate like the, Latin cuisines, right? Rice and beans, like, we listen to Spanish music, parties almost every night, right? Like, her and him hanging out. But in terms of tradition, like I feel like it's a little different for me because we're very Americanized, right?
Got
Like
you.
so we ain't grow up in like that traditional church and certain elements that you might see in a traditional Puerto Rican household, for example, than in mine.
So your parents were never together like during the time that you were alive, like since you were a kid?
Facts. Yeah, separation.
What was that like for you to like bounce back from different houses?
It kind of made me who I am, right? Because I got the exposure to 2 different worlds. Like my mom lived in poverty, right? I'm on the Southwest. You know what I'm saying? I see what struggle looked like. I'm living it. Primarily than my father, he was in the field, but he was a bricklayer. Like he was, in the elites. So I kind of got to see what luxury looked like. Him picking me up in Benzes and, Rollies and taking me places and on trips. But then on the weekday, I'm going to school. I'm going back home. So I kind of got to see 2 different worlds real young.
Interesting, man. Yeah, that's real interesting. Um, what would you say like your relationship was like with each of them?
So early on, I always been a mama's boy as a kid. Can't lie, real close to my mom's. But I think like my father, he always brought me like that different balance, right? As like that male figure in my life, right? So like my relation with my pops was like more of me as a student. I feel like learning from him, watching him, seeing him doing what he's doing, taking on some of his identity. So I felt like when I'm around my father, I'm more like a student. With my mom, I'm more like her son, you know what I'm saying? Her protector, You know what I mean? I played two different roles, right? Like, so yeah, my relation with mom was more like intimate in that way versus from my pops as a kid. It was more like it was close, a lot of love there, but I was more cautious and more as a student, if that makes sense.
So you felt more safe with your mom.
I can't say I didn't feel safe with my pops because he, gave me, he was like my hero to be honest, right? So
Right.
it's more like influenced by a certain leader that you just want to watch his every move, right? So like I didn't look at my mom for that. So basically, he's the example, the model I wanted to be like. Versus when my mom was more loving, intimate, emotional. You know what I'm saying?
So yeah,
And
so
that
your
was
mom was nurturing you while your dad was like the role model of like this is how a man carries himself. This is like
the
basically
cultivator, the
right,
nurturer, and the
exactly.
cultivator. Yeah,
So I'm assuming you're born in the 80s, but you're coming up in the 90s, right?
yeah. 88.
Okay. So take us through the eyes of Jonathan Alvarez, right? Young Latino kid walking the streets of Yonkers in the 90s. What are you seeing? Like, what is Yonkers like at this time?
Yonkers is is kind of mixed, right? So like I bounced from. I mean, I kind of lived primarily on the Southwest my whole time. But what I truthfully, all I can recall as a young kid, I'm talking about like being 6 to 10, because it was when 10 I started to really go outside and like really flirt with the streets. But at that time, being young, I think everything I remember is my older sister, my older cousins, right? And everything I think of is just hip hop music. I think of I think of Jordans, I think of Uptowns, I think of MTV, BET, right? Like these are the things that us as kids was like kind of still watching or like, listening to. Um, and it kind of just felt like we were free, right? Like, me and my stepbrothers run around, the young kids going to parks, hanging out, you know what I'm saying? Just catching wreck, doing a lot of things we shouldn't be doing. You know what I'm saying? So like we felt free. We was in our neighborhood a lot. I can't tell you if I understood what was going on around me at that time, right? Because we was outside having fun as kids, playing manhunt, tag, running around, doing all those things, going to the parks, playing ball. Um, but in terms of culturally, like I think about the music, the way we were dressing, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I wouldn't be able to now tell you when I hit the streets and the things I started to see what it looked like for me then as an early teen. That's like a different experience because now I'm kind of coming into that space differently.
Your level of comprehension at that time started to change. Obviously, you picked up on things more,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
during the earlier days is the more innocence of the childhood. Right. So
Facts.
like that element of the environment was still present, but you may not have picked up on it yet.
Exactly. Like the early 2000s is kind of like when I kind of can understand that world. I mean, like versus
Gotcha.
the 90s, besides the music and
How
things
would
like
you
that.
describe yourself as a kid though? Like, were you really into school or just mainly like sports and music?
I was a good kid, man. Like, I mean, some people would tell you that was bad, but I was a good kid in my eyes, right? Like, I was a typical kid, wilding in school, having fun. I kind of picked up sports early on. First, it was baseball, then it was basketball. Basketball kind of became my love. I was playing a lot of ball in the park. Um, and then music, kind of just with the times, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody else was. But me as a kid, I always been curious, you know what I'm saying? Asked a lot of questions. Always was a good observer, you know what I'm saying? And I think early on, when I think back now, like I always had like a level of leadership in me, you know what I'm saying? Where I always was kind of trendsetting things on my own and, exploring things on my own as a kid, you know?
But hip hop was a key part of your life early on, though.
Facts.
What made you fall in love with hip hop?
The style, the swag, the gravitas that come with it, right? Like, the thing about us, any person, you influenced by your environment, right? So if this is like the trend of the time and this is what the girls like, right? And then you see the style that the guys are wearing, you tend to like it's almost you just like by default fall in love with the culture, right?
Hmm.
Because you want to now become that to get these other things that's alluring you, whether it's the woman, it's the money, the shine, right? Like, just think about the way rappers presented themselves, right? They, looking all like they shining crazy, big chains, jewelry, music. I mean, the cars, the
It
clothes,
was
right?
like our superheroes.
Yeah, like they're the ones that we see as success, basically, right? Like we never saw. I might have had some good movies I saw, but I ain't look at that like I want to achieve that. It was what I saw in the music videos, so that kind of pulled us in because we coming from the trenches. So of course that looks real good. You know what I mean?
Right. And what kind of like who influenced you as an artist though? Like, which rappers did you gravitate towards?
Damn, that's crazy. I have a nice little group. Um, well, to be honest, before, so I should say this, so just to be told with you, right? While liking hip hop, I also like pop music. I can't even lie to you. Word. It's like a little fun fact, like Backstreet Boys. I ain't gonna hold you. They played a little influential role in my life. But
Oh, you was
and
on that real TRL thing. And you was watching that, like.
yeah, yeah. I had a diverse background. Word. Nah, it's facts. But Fab, I remember Fabulous early on. I remember Nas. You know what I'm saying? Nas was one of my favorite rappers at one point. Then it became Styles P. You know what I'm saying? I kind of was really jacking Styles P crazy. DMX,
Oh,
Tupac
you got the
crazy.
YO connection then. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Nah, for sure. Like, you know what I'm saying? Of course the locks. But yeah, like my favorite rappers I really listened to, even Young Buck at one time. I was jacking Young Buck heavy. Um, yeah, I have like a diverse group, but I know early on as a kid, like Nas always like he's always been somebody that I took to. His swag, his intellect.
Anybody ever tell you that you kind of look like you could be related to True Life?
He fun fact is they used to call me True Life when I was in the county. Cause I
Oh,
used to
for
have,
real?
yeah, I had four pigtails. I had four pigtails. They used to either
Right.
call me Baby Jesus or True Life because I had four pigtails. It was the best way to keep my hair, you know, maintained because my hair was long when I was in the county and I didn't know how to braid my hair. Or so it's funny you say that. Yeah, I heard that before.
That's funny, man. So you ended up losing your father to the prison system when you were 10 years old, right?
Yeah,
What
10, yeah,
uh
11 this
what
year.
for during that time?
You said what?
What happened during that time?
Oh yeah, yeah. Nah, my pop. So again, like I said early on, like he was in the big leagues. He was doing his thing. He was a bricklayer, and it's funny. I just reconnected with my father after 25 years in August. I just got to like learn what happened, and basically somebody told on him. You know what I'm saying? Like he moved real tact, and I think being in that game, you're dealing with different elements, and I think somebody internally told on him, and when he got booked. I don't like know the dynamics. I know that he got bailed out. He was fighting the case and had to turn himself in. And then, yeah, once he was snatched for good, my mom's just like, yo, your father's going away. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of like one day I come home from school from playing outside and she's like, I got to sit you down. Like he never really prepped me. You know what I'm saying? He ain't tell me like, look, this is what's going on. Now putting the pieces together, he got booked, got let out. He was trying to fight the case and avoid deportation and all that. And but he never really like, you know what I'm saying? I think he didn't expect it to go where it went. And then it kind of happened. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Do you remember like your immediate reaction when he's like telling you or your
No,
mom's telling you?
my mom telling me, yeah,
Your mom telling you, sorry.
it was real. I think I started crying. I think like she kind of was crying too. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, like this is real. You know what I'm saying? And your father's gonna go away for a while. And I think for a moment, I paused. And I think the idea of like, I can't just call him right now. I think that because he was like I say, he was like my hero, right? So I could call him if I needed something. So the fact that I can't immediately like pick up my phone, I think I felt that. And I paused, I cried. And I don't really know what happened afterward. I know in that moment I was in her room and where that was a moment.
So then after then you guys don't stay in contact, you and your father during that time?
Nah, like it's kind of blurred for me. I know. I think we spoke on the phone a couple times. My mom didn't really like have it to go see him, and like you know what I'm saying. It was like I guess financially, can't even tell you exactly why she ain't never bring me. But yeah, nah, like it just was a disconnect. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy. 'Cause I know we spoke. I think I wrote him a letter and that was it. I think I was supposed to go see him, but we never like it never happened. And then he got like shipped up top, and then he was too far, and then next he's doing his time, and then he gets deported. You know what I'm saying? Like it kind of happened so fast.
So it's almost like he passed away because like you guys totally lost contact entirely.
Yeah, yeah, for a minute.
So he got deported to Puerto Rico or
No, so my father's from DR. He's originally
DR?
born in
Sorry,
DR.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. My mom's a New York Regan.
right. And when you said you recently reconnected with him in August, right?
Yeah, and well, we reconnected over the phone in 2013. Like he found my crazy long story. He found a contact number of my grandmother's, and then that never changed in like 30 years. And then he connected with her, to connected with my aunt, connected with my other aunt and my mom, and then like my ex-wife at the time, like facilitate that call. So we reconnected, and we always been in conversation like since then. Then I come home 5.5 years ago. We definitely connected on FaceTime and then in person, finally, like he accepted the reality that he can't leave because he ended up moving from PR. He was on his way to Bolivia, and he ended up in Peru. And then there's some gold mines out there that he's involved with, right? So like he started to like invest into some things back early on, and then he kind of just parked out there trying to build his foundation. And but he's still dealing with some trouble with trying to come back to the States. So I think his for a minute, like he wasn't trying to have me or my other brother who I connected with, we reconnected with, come out there, and we was kind of like, yo, we gotta see you. It's been too long, and then he finally accepted the reality, like, yo, look, I just come out here. So we went out there in August, and that was deep. I ain't gonna lie, it was like a full circle moment.
Man, I can't imagine the emotion that you must have felt, like not only in 2013 when you reconnected with him, right? Because I mean, those are so many years in between of you feeling like I lost my father, you know what I mean? And then hearing his voice on the phone, and then actually getting to see him in person, just in August, right? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was deep. I ain't gonna lie, it was deep. I think I'm still kind of like processing that.
Right, right. It takes time, you know. Do you feel like that was healing for you?
In the moment, yeah, like in the moment, I had some powerful moments with him. You know what I'm saying? Where I was able like to watch him sit down. We having a glass of wine. I think like my favorite moment was having a glass of wine with him and kind of just talking about life and like we just building and I'm listening to him and what I mean. I think I kind of yearned for that moment. It wasn't as emotional as I thought it was gonna be for me, right? Like when we saw each other, he did the crying first. And I think for some reason, the way I feel about my parents, like the minute they cry, I kind of take a more protective role. So like I couldn't break. I'll cry on my way over there thinking about it. Days before it, I'm like, oh, it's gonna get real. I had this whole vision in my mind about, but it didn't happen the way I thought it was. I ain't gonna lie.
So you said that in that moment you couldn't cry because you kind of were like being the strong one for them, right? For
Yeah, type
him,
shit.
and it seems like you've done that for your mom as well.
100%.
Do you feel like that is a role that you had to take on as a child, that you had to do that?
Not for my pops. For my mom, I seen her in a lot of vulnerable moments, but I can't think about the connection between like seeing her cry or him cry and like me immediately pivoting, right? Like I can't see the connection,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe just kind of how I kind of grew up, right? Like being in prison my whole life, kind of. I don't know, just kind of what it is. There
Right.
got to be some connection that I haven't thought about yet. Or
So your mom, she ends up remarrying to your step pops, or
basically, they were more like together forever.
got
Yeah,
you, got you. Okay.
yeah. They never
And
was really married.
how old are you when he enters your life?
Oh, young, like super young. I mean, like 4 years old, young. Like
Wow.
4 or
Okay.
5, I think, around there. Like I can't get the pin age, like the exact age, but I was young.
What was your relationship like with him?
We were disconnected for many years. I fake ain't really like him
Mm-hmm.
for a while, right? I think my stepbrothers kind of made it easier for me. You know what I'm saying? Because I related. One is like a couple of months younger than me. The other one is like a year and a half younger than me. Shout out to my brothers. Um, and then they older brothers kind of became my, stepbrothers as well because I'm growing up under them too. So they kind of made it easier for me in terms of relating with them. But I think because my father was around, there was always that separation. Um,
So
he'll
was it
take me
kind of
out with
like
the
you're not my dad kind of thing? Like you're not really my father's?
exactly. Yeah,
Got you. Okay.
exactly.
But then, like, do
Like
you guys eventually like form a relationship of some sort?
um Not really. Like I think we had a relationship, right? Like, but it was all based on like his actual kids. So like his kids come over, he'll take us out to like, Chuck E. Cheese or something, or we go somewhere, and now we actually bonding. But I'm bonding with his kids, not really him. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So we never really had like that intimate bond between us that I could say like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like him and I were close.
So then your step pops was also involved in the streets too, right? And the
Yeah,
feds end up raiding your house. And what is the charge for that?
they found a money machine in my room. So his closet was in my room. They found a money machine. They found a lot of money. I think they found only some grams of coke, but it was tied to a conspiracy. So one of his guys, they ended up getting a lot of time for this. They he got deported too. Basically, they found like a situation where it was like I think 30, 40 bricks involved, two guns, and I think a whole lot of money, but they never got the money. It was like a whole situation with that. So my crib was like a little go to for a minute. And this is where the parties I was talking about, like, is going on that night, right? Like, not knowing that, like, there's, his peoples is coming through, they chilling, they doing what they doing. And the feds was watching my crib for a minute. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So that he wasn't like, at the, top of the podium. So he was kind of like a runner. I feel like he kind of was like the middleman. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't like the big dog.
So then he gets deported to the DR too?
He gets sent to the feds as well. Feds come knocking on the door. In fact, I was in the crib that night getting clothes to sleep over my bro's crib, and they was outside waiting, lamping. And that's crazy. I don't know how I knew this. I was like, "Yo, you got a warrant?" Because they try to come in the crib. They were like, where did they like, yo, can we come in? I was like, "Yo, you got a warrant?" I can't even think about how I knew that. The streets will put it in you.
But then, so then at that time, it's like two of your male role models basically are gone then,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, facts.
And there's like parallels almost in between their two stories because what you said that he gets deported as well, right? Your step pops gets deported too?
Facts. And he's from DR.
Wow.
And around that time, I'm like 13, 14 when the second, when my stepfather leaves, right? So I'm already like playing in the field, but it got much serious after that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So then you're 13 now and you're starting to sell weed, right?
Yeah, we
Okay.
was the first thing.
How did you get involved in those activities?
My, I think my first, my older cousin, I think her boyfriend at the time, he was basically in the field. I think he needed somebody to run. That's the only person I ever chopped for, right? I was young. Well, no, I'm capping. Before him, me and my bro actually, we copped some money. We used to smoke weed. Actually started by smoking weed first, right? And now we like, yo, we gonna get a little half ounce. And then we bag up the half ounce and then we flip the half ounce and then we get an ounce. But then it kind of like, I don't know, we ran through our money or we fucked that pack up, but it wasn't. Then around that, my next situation was my cousin's boyfriend at the time. And he put me on, and then I was doing good with that for a little minute, had the cell phone trap and I was moving. And then from there, I kind of just started doing my own thing. Because in my neighborhood where I was at now, where I lived at, it was like a kind of no man's land. There was somebody there trapping, but, I kind of didn't really respect this shit. So I kind of just like stepped right in. And it just became what it became.
What was the allure for you during that time to get involved in that?
Independence. I call it full sense of independence. Like I wanted to get fly. My mom couldn't really keep up, like, with the Joneses, right? Like she's struggling. She's, got what she got going on. She's probably at the time still dealing with the whole situation with the feds and this dude's up top or transitioning to him getting deported. I think me knowing like I like to get fly, I like to smoke, and I was outside. So for me, it had to make sense. So I'm like, if I'm gonna smoke and being able to afford my own clothes, I'm gonna just start trapping. So
Mm.
that was like kind of like my pulling.
So did you end up graduating to like selling coke or to crack or anything like that?
I bust like a play or two, or for like just connecting some dots, but nah. I always actually intentionally stood away from that because at that time, like the way the boys was on the white was different. I kind of
Right.
knew like this was like a lane you could kill, make a lot of money, and not really. It still brought us a lot of problems at the time. We wasn't really like what it is now, but I kind of intentionally stood away from that.
So then you end up catching what, an assault and robbery charge?
My first charge was assault and a robbery, facts,
Right.
and
And but
we
you
ended
end
up
up
beating
beating
that.
it though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, you did your homework.
Come on, man. Come on. So
That's funny.
what happened with the situation?
Me and my right hand, my comrade D. He's one of the young boys I was running around with early on. Honestly, it wasn't even a robbery or actual. It was more like a gang assault. So I was in the store, and at the time we were like going back and forth with some dudes down the block, right? Like a little block beef we had going on. So we walk around with canes and all kind of stupid shit. So this dude, some like he was actually a delivery man that I found out. I don't know what happened between him and one of my guys, but they ended up getting into a scuffle. You know what I'm saying? And that scuffle, like I tried to like fake break it up at one point, but the way he was a grown man to us, mind you, we're young, we 14. No, I'm 16 at the time. And I'm like, yo, like this, he trying to overpower my son. So I'm like, yo, get off him. So we started jumping him. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
We started jumping him. And from there, I kicked him so hard. I think I like cracked his shit or whatever. And he got up out of fear and was just like, yo, I'm calling police. So I kind of got pulled into the situation because it was happening right where I was trapping at, like right there on the main Ave on South Broadway. So me like not trying to make it hot, I'm trying to stop it, but he wasn't letting go of my boy. So it was like we just started going in on him. And then he lied. Like nobody robbed him, nobody. I mean, so we ended up getting booked for the robbery. It actually was an attempt robbery and assault in the second, I think. So yeah, assault in the second or third.
So how do you guys end up beating that charge?
Oh, grand jury. So at the felony hearing, the felony hearing. So if you take it to a felony hearing, he got to show up, and he never
Mm.
showed up for two. So the first one he don't show up for, they let you go. The second one he don't show up for, they dismiss the case.
Wow. So at this point, are you in a gang or are you just like running with your people?
Kinda like I never was with no formal gang, right? But my block is my gang. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I'm on South Broadway, on Lawrence Street, right? Like that's just the hood. You know what I mean, so we banging what we know. Is nothing like, no Latin King bloods and nothing like that. But
Was there never an allure to you about joining the Kings or joining an actual gang?
nah, that's crazy. Like while we run around with handshakes, we had calls, we did the whole nine, right? It never in our eyes was perceived as a gang. So I never really looked at like time myself like an allegiance to this like faction and bringing it all my loyalty to it. But I mean, I just never saw it making sense like blind loyalty. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So in 2006, you catch the case for murder, right? At 17 years old. What are the
Yes.
series of events that lead up to that happening?
Series of events. Typically, so the dude who the whole situation was over, um, he basically, to my knowledge, and I don't have a full understanding of what really took place between him and this dude. The victim of my case, it was his brother that actually the situation was over. So the brother and the person on my side had some dealings over some work. I don't know if it was weed or crack. Like, I don't know all the details. I just know that dealing went south, or I think the person on my side burned him. Fast forward 2 months later, they in my hood, and the dude who got burnt end up hopping a couple of my bros, right? So we get the call, and I'm in the city reeing up. Like I'm on money time. I'm not even on violence time. I'm trying to separate. So yeah, we get the call, and like for us, unfortunately, like violence was normal. Whether we hopping something, we getting into something, shootouts is happening, somebody getting stabbed, one-on-ones, like whatever's gonna be, like we were with it, right? So we kind of normalize those activities to the point where I get involved in a situation like it's nothing, versus thinking about what's about to happen, what could happen. You know, we almost was gonna take it to the further extent and actually bring the grip. But because we used to violence, it's like nothing, like this ain't that serious. You know what I'm saying? Like we're already separating the situation from like high risk of 5 versus 10. Like, this is not immediate war. Let's go handle this. And I think on my way there, again, I wasn't taking it serious. You know what I'm saying? And me and somebody that was with me, we were walking, and like, it's funny because the case, my body was over. It happened with a bat. You know what I'm saying? So on my way there, I seen a bat on the floor in front of a yard, and I reached for it. And the person that was with me was like, "Yo, you can't, yo, bro, we don't need that. You bugging." You know what I'm saying? Like, and I threw it, and I threw the bat. And when I get to the situation, you know what I'm saying? It got crazy, and the person who ultimately lost his life, the victim, ended up he brought the bat to the situation.
So this wasn't even something that was directly involving you. This was you just backing up your people, basically.
9 of the 10 times, Jay didn't really have no problems directly. Like, I was always on get money time. I wasn't a troublemaker. I was, chasing the girls. I was always doing me on some, and then whenever it's time to put on, I put on. So yeah, it was like me getting pulled in somebody else's situations. It's always been like that. You know what I'm saying?
So what is your reaction when the situation obviously gets out of control and he ends up losing his life? Like, does the police show up right then and there, or like you get caught later on? How does that situation unfold?
I got caught 4 days later. So I fake was on a run for like 4 days. And I kind of like played myself. See, I don't know the elements of the courts and all that. I basically fake turned myself in. You know what I'm saying? I basically gave myself up without knowing that they were looking for me. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like the dummy moment for me, to be honest. But the week prior to that happening, I got subpoenaed to court to like basically provide an alibi for the person who did my tattoo, because he got booked from copping weed off me. I was on like 3 blocks away from the tattoo shop. So it was a nice summer night. He ended up walking to me. Yo, literally on his comeback to the shop, he gets locked up for robbery because of something happened. 3 young boys, I think they even like kind of co-signed it. So he's legit an innocent person locked up in a situation. So I get the call from the shop owner like, yo, Al needs to get in touch with you. I was his last contact. So the feds got that, right? So everything made something like, yo, I got him. You know what I'm saying? I'll go and hold it down for son. So me being subpoenaed, like when this situation happened, I didn't know they were looking for me because they raided the person who told on me, they raided his crib immediately. So they connected the dots between the incident that happened early on South Broadway, then the incident that happened 2 hours later on Carroll, right? That was when we showed up. The person that was involved in the earlier incident, they raided his crib. They ran down on somebody else. Like everybody else was like kind of getting the attention. Me, I'm a factor in the situation. Meaning the police know who I am. They could have went to my door. Nothing. So at the time, I'm thinking I'm low. And then that Tuesday, I end up going to the courthouse, such as in White Plains, a whole nother situation for this particular situation with Al. And somehow they lined up, like they coordinated the dots, because the night before, the person that they raided his crib on Friday turned himself in at 7 that night and wrote a statement at 7:45 or something like that. So the statement gets written, and now by Monday morning, I don't even know how that works. They must have known I was going. I can't even tell you where they was going to land, because they didn't go to my crib still. They didn't come looking for me that same night. They must have. I can't even tell you, to be honest. Like if they knew, or he got caught tomorrow, or he got an interview with the DA, and then they kind of just lined it up like that. So while I'm in the situation, I'm on my way out. They kind of like locked me in a room.
So the person that ends up snitching on you, is it the person that you were rolling into that situation with, or is it like somebody that was the witness there?
No, the person that I was rolling to the situation for.
Wow.
The one that gave me the call that said, yo, we just got hopped. Like that person who looped me in his situation, that person who the Dylans went south with, right? Like, and what's crazy, just to clear, the one thing I like to always say is that I remember when I was in Sing Sing, there was a article about the case that made it seem like it was over a cell phone. And that was straight up like false. And the reason why I bring that up, because The way it all happened, like the story I'm telling you is not what was reported, right? But the truth was, it was his situation tied to an earlier situation that turned ugly, and then we got pulled into it. You know what I'm saying?
So this person, were you really close to him? Like,
Yeah, he was one of my bros. Like he wasn't one of my like closest ones. Like if I had
mhm.
a circle of six, I might be closest to one or two, but the other four, like they just the bros, they comrades. Like we warring together, we on the same strip getting money together, we drinking together, we outside together. Like yeah, but he
But
wasn't
how
like one of
long? I
my.
mean, but how does that feel when you find out that one of your own is the one that is responsible, basically, for you being in that situation? Not only for being in that situation, but now even worse that he's identifying you.
Oh, I was angry. I didn't know immediately it was him. I kind of had a sense because I spoke to him. I think was it Sunday or I forgot what day. But I spoke to him. I knew there was some funny thing going on, so I banged on him. But I didn't really know because I had 5 statements on me. I had five. Two of them were witnesses. Three of them were people involved. So I had 3 statements written on me. So I was mad already. Like you know what I mean. I got pulled into the situation. It wasn't mine. I did go left. You know what I'm saying? But for to see how that all turned out, it's like betrayal. It's like you played yourself because when you really look at it for what it wasn't even worth it. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like it made sense. So I was more mad at myself for even, jumping all in.
Because you thought that you was doing the right thing, obviously protecting one of your own. You know what I mean? Loyalty is a serious thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Facts.
and to see somebody do that to you is it's like the worst thing,
Facts.
basically.
Facts. Yeah,
So
yeah.
so during the trial, is he up there on the stand, like like really like saying all this,
No,
and you?
we didn't even go that far. I copped out
Oh,
because
okay.
my situation went from the victim was a vegetable. You know what I'm saying? Um, so it was assault on the first. I got arraigned on, or I got arrested on assault on the first. It went, and I got indicted on murder in the second. So I had to contend that. If I'd have went to trial, I would have been fighting the murder in the second, but that could have went left, or I could have beat it. But the situation the odds were stacked against me. So I had the first offer was 15 years flat manslaughter. Out of
Mm.
15, you do 12 and 10. Now, it might sound crazy, but I was like, I knew what I did. You know what I'm saying? I knew what I did. So I wasn't even thinking of beating the situation. I was more or less trying to just, and it's kind of somehow I am now. Like I like just get over and keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't have money to go to war, meaning we couldn't fight the case officially. I had an ATMB, right? So it wasn't like I was, lawyered up. I knew the odds were stacked against me. I wasn't ready to take a stand and try to tell my story because I was going to freestyle, right? So that was just to me like, yo, bro, you made your bed, you're going to land it. You know what I'm saying? Kind of approach. So I was trying to get 10. My cop out was like 10 flat. I was trying to go for 10 flat. And I was trying to bargain with the lawyer, like, get me 10 flat, I'll take that. And I could have pushed the limit when she offered me the 15 and I was like, nah, I could have been like, nah, I want 10. But I was scared. Mind you, I'm 17. The way the story tells is like, yo, you don't take this offer, they're coming back with something even bigger. And once you know what I'm saying, they offer you that second plea, that first one's off the table. So you playing Russian roulette, bro. It's like, you either going to take this or not. And I took it. I might have
Right.
kind of folded too quick when I think about it, but you 17, you scared, you're not sure if like, because the alternative was if you don't take this 15, they're gonna go up. Well, I think she said they're gonna go to trial, so she might have pressured me too, right? So she's like, we're gonna go to trial, and I was like, what that look like? She goes, you might beat the case, you might beat the murder and fall on manslaughter, but the judge might throw you 25 flat. 20 flat, 15 flat, 10 flat. He could give you 10 flat. So it's kind of like your fate is in the judge's hands if beat the murder and fall on manslaughter. You know what I'm saying? And you take 25 when you could have took this 15. So I
Yeah.
was like, I had to think about that, man. And I
And
spoke to
at
my
least it was a
people.
flat bed too.
That was it for me. Like flatbed, I was happy to hear that. Um, yeah.
So when do you end up finding out that it was him that was one of the people that wrote a statement on you?
Oh, the statements that they, I think after the cop out, the discovery. I gotta actually, I can't remember when because we ended up shaking in the county. I seen him and we ended up getting it. Um,
Oh, damn. So then you see him again then. So you actually
oh
do
yeah,
see him.
yeah.
Wow.
I ain't gonna lie. The town was on his heels. Like he couldn't go nowhere. You know what I'm saying? And like, yeah, he went low and he came in the county and like he thought we were good and there was missiles sent at him. I ain't gonna lie, he couldn't really go nowhere. And then we finally locked on a visit and we finally got the shake because yeah, we finally got close to each other. You know what I'm saying? I saw him two
So
other times. I
was
couldn't
he
get
in
to
there
him.
for that situation or he got in there for
Mm-mm,
something else?
something else.
Wow.
Because technically, in the situation, yeah, it was over him, but he ain't do nothing to this. Like he wasn't the cause of the death, right? So he kind of was just involved in this kind of situation. Um, but yeah, nah, they could. I'm surprised they never booked him, to be honest. Or
So then you guys end up having an altercation. After that, is it like settled between you guys? Like you forgive him or anything, or like it was just like full on beef, like for forever?
I mean, I'm gonna. He home now because he ended up. So funny thing was on my way out, right? Like I did think about this, like if I see him when I was in the state, like what's that gonna look like? Because he got on gang time, and when you in the state, like it's a situation, you might have to grip up and then go to his leaders and like, yo, look, produce paperwork and all that. So you kind of got to make a choice at that level, and God forbid, I mean, thank God it never happened because I wasn't trying to like throw my bit away and not come home, right? So
Right.
I did think about what would that look like. Now being home, bro, the work I do, like I I walk by example. You know what I'm saying? Like, so he means nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? I even tell a couple people that saw him and was trying to give him some energy, like, yo, don't even do that. You know what I'm saying? Because I ain't gonna even do that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? As long as he don't like front, which I highly doubt, he ain't gonna bring none of that energy. Um, you go your way, I go my way, bro. Like, what's to here to do? There's two outcomes, right? I'm gonna take you, either I'm gonna just erase you off the situation, which I'm not doing, right? Risk everything I got going for myself, which I'm not doing. So everything leads to I'm not doing that. Just stay away
Right.
from me and keep it pushing. It's a new era, it's a new age, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's good, man. And it's good that you told people not to give him any energy because then he could be like, "Yo, you sent that." You know what I mean?
Yeah, or he could see me and be threatened and kind of
Right.
respond to a perceived threat. You know what I'm saying? You got to
Right.
think about it from all angles.
So you end up getting sentenced to the 15, right? You're 17 at the time. Well, 18 now when you really start serving it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I turned 18 in the county.
Right. So you end up doing 12 and a half years in prison. What would you describe, like, how would you describe that overall experience?
Um, my first, I think, year or two, I got caught up doing some stupid shit. But coming into it, like, I think I like looked at this like as an adventure. You know what I'm saying? I kind of went in a weird way. I was like excited, like, yeah, I got a body. I mean, I was dumb, right? Young, believing into this little badge of honor of like, yeah, I'm about to do this journey. I stood tall in my situation. I mean, I'm like kind of still believing in the hype. And so for me, it kind of was like an adventure, but it was it was eye opening, right? Like to be I remember I was 18. I walked the Sing Sing yard for the first time, and I was alert. I didn't really trust nobody. It's hard to like find your foot, and you're just observing everything. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was like I came in and kind of was just watching, and because I was made aware of where I'm at, like you know what I'm saying. And then some situations happened that almost I thought it was my case resurfacing. I'm not going to talk on that, but it could have led to, if it was what we thought it was, it could have led to a whole war inside, but it didn't. Thank God. So yeah, man, my bid was real. Like at least in terms of being young and like kind of going through the journey, I was fortunate to always have some support though. So I wasn't like on jail time with no support on the outside. So that kind of made my bit easier. But I've been through my hurdles, you know what I'm saying? I did box time, you know what I'm saying? I done seen police do things to niggas. I done almost got into situations with police, but I was always like kind of trying to stay away from that. So I think for
Mhm.
me, learning from the first lesson is like start thinking before you act. that became my biggest lesson learned at 18 because of what just happened to me, right? Like I just literally, I'm walking through the fire for jumping out the window, right? So now everything I do, I'm moving with caution. And then when you in prison, it's a hyper violent space, and you hearing the stories, and like you start to connect with certain people, and you start to see like, I you got to move like this. And I just started moving like that. And that was militant. You know what I'm saying? Staying away from all the gangs. I was told you I never really liked gangs in terms of getting involved. They tried recruiting me. You know what I'm saying? It never been my thing. I learned, I got like, into working out, into learning. And then I'm like a nerd on the low. So I like to learn. So I'm like, I'm going to go to school, right? So all the good things that were there, I started to attract to more than the bad things. And that really took a shape on my bit.
Why is it that we look at it as a badge of honor or a rite of passage to do time in prison? Like we look at it like this is what makes you a man.
I think because it's the false narratives that we taught as a kid, right? Like back to what you asked me earlier, what influenced you in the hip hop? We said all the stuff that Styles P and DMX and all the gangsters is talking about, 50 Cent, right? Getting shot, right? Like it's literally commoditized, right? Like it's a commodity. It's monetized actually, right? Where there's a lot of money behind that image. So we buy into it.
It's
We buy
propaganda,
into it.
basically.
Yeah, we buy into it like, oh, like that's what it is to be a man. And like, I got to stand on this. And, so the idea of going to jail, specifically if you go to jail honorably, right?
Right.
Because, even one of my bros the other day, we had like a debate. It's true. A lot of people who did time ain't really solid. It's a lot of people that did time that's not solid. But we did jail time honorably. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's something to that. Because that's like your resume stamped. That's like, let's put it in the marketplace, right? Like that's like working at, Goldman Sachs in the finance world. You've been there. It's over. You stamped that kind of thing. So we, I think, internalized that validity early on. Like that's stamping me. I did mine. You know what I'm saying? That's
Well,
kind of
especially
something.
if you're able to show your paperwork and you stood tall,
100%.
right? It's almost like
100%.
this is a degree. You know what I'm
Yo,
saying? It's like I'm
literally.
showing off my degree.
Yo, literally. I never, to be honest, the first time I actually talked about it like that, but that's a fact. It's like a stamp. It's like a degree. Like you could take everything from me, but you can't take away my education, right? You could
Right.
take same type of thing. Like as a person, you earned that. It's like a valor, like a purple heart, man. Like it's interesting when you think about it like that. And I might not have been able to articulate it then what I'm saying now, but I think in my mind is like I got lucky too, right? Like I've been through that and I got lucky because I'm not doing life. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of was hyped that I came off I came off on top.
So the two male figures you've known in your life have essentially gone down the same path. I know you didn't see it as a child, but I'm sure you've had time to reflect on it in your life, whether in prison or post prison. Did you ever see how that was possibly like foreshadowing that same outcome for you as well?
Not then, but now. Like that's my work that I do. That's why we try to disrupt that. No, 100%, right? Like I think, yeah, there's a correlation between, what I experienced as a kid and, me and 17. Think about it. So statistically, it was proven that was destined for me, right? 10 years old, father gets sent to the feds. 13, 14, step pops get sent to the feds, right? Even between 10 and 13, I started jumping into the streets. I'm no longer playing at the park no more. I'm outside trapping. 13 to 17, now I'm really involved. I'm like doing things. I'm running around with the bros. So it's like I just started to elevate in that world. So yeah, 100%, man. It's sad to say, but that's the reality for a lot of us that come from these places.
It's interesting because when we witness things as kids, right? It's like you could either go one or two ways. Like it's like a magnet for you to be attracted to it, or you go the opposite way entirely because it scares
That's
you or
true.
something.
That's true. Oh, you smart enough then to say that's not it.
Right. Or what do
Well,
you think it was that pulled you towards it so much?
so I got family that was like kind of in the streets, right? So like even my little cousin was outside early on, right? His older brother we looked up to, he was known as a fighter. You know what I'm saying? He was violent. So that is ever present, right? So like I couldn't escape that. So it's different than like me being a kid with no family in the streets, and I see the streets, and then I'm allured by that, and then I got the choice to come back to the safe haven. Nah, like in my world, me and my mom are, clashing because she's by herself struggling. I'm trying to figure my life out. I go to my other family crib, my older cousins. He trapping, he getting into fights, he knocking dudes out, right? They in another hood. I'm seeing things, right? So it's kind of like it's ever present. Then I go outside and it's going on. Like this is what's happening.
It's
So
everywhere you look.
it's
It's in the
everywhere you look,
music. It's on the
right?
TV. It's in your, when you talk to your family. It's when you go outside. So it's like that conditioning, that programming. It
100%.
makes it so much more likely for you to even go down that way, right? And then
Exactly.
like even like when you talk to certain people, they're like, you don't want to. When you're young, it's like you're so impressionable. You don't want to be known as the one that's the good kid. That's like, oh, he ain't really about that.
Exactly.
He's
That's
not
part of the
that type. He's
influences.
not from that cloth.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
crazy, bro. Like,
All that. You start to internalize all that. You know what I mean? And I think, I believe in energies, right? So like you have the positive energy in you and you got some negative energy in you, right? Because you attract energy. And I think I don't know how to, whether it's a spiritual, whether it's naturally, you are pulled to one energy more than the other. You know what I'm saying? But when you in the hood and you in the trenches and you ain't got no positive energy around you, you're gonna attract the only other energy, which is negative, right?
mm-hmm.
So this is why it goes to my work. What we do is we try to bring positive influences to offset the negative influences. Like it's literally about a battle between two forces, right? So having only one force ever present, it was kind of like bound for me to become that.
Yeah. And then when you start to look at it, like even on the deeper level of the things that are accessible in the hood, even like as far as like healthy foods, different stuff, like you're not feeling good. So how can you, be at your best? You know what I'm saying? The stuff that you're consuming in every possible way
For
is
sure.
it's terrible.
For sure.
So you end up getting married at 18, right? So you're married in prison. You get married in
Yeah.
prison. All right. What was that like?
It was interesting. Being young and married, it was an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? I did have genuine love for my ex-wife, but it was more like an opportunity to do my bit comfortably. You know what I'm saying? Like you got two ways you could do your bid. You could be all the way in the trenches with it and struggling and like, going through all the elements, or you could try to make it comfortable and easy. Everyone want to try to make it easy and comfortable, right? You're already dealing with your own battles, right? So I think early on, I'm like, because truthfully, I didn't want to really get married. You know what I'm saying? And I remember having a talk with my mom and my aunt, and they was like, yo, she's a good girl. Like, you should take this, this is a great opportunity for you. Like, build something with her, like, so you're not missing out on building a family. Like, all of that kind of was part of it. And I was like, what's the worst case scenario, right? Like, go for it. So it was interesting. I was nervous to get married, going through my vows and all that for the first time. But it also felt
But did you guys have like a prior relationship though?
Yeah, her and I, she was like my first girlfriend when I was 5. Right? Yeah, like that type of connection. No, I'm lying. We knew each other since we was 5, but she was my first girlfriend when I was 9, not 5,
Right.
9. And then we started talking a little bit around when I was 14. And then it wasn't until we was 17, like literally before I got booked, we kind of just reconnected. You know what I'm saying? But she wasn't my main squeeze before I got locked up. I had somebody else. And then, so it made sense to reach back out. We started connecting. And then that's when, we got like, we got together.
And what was it like for you, and what do you think it was like for her, that relationship while you were doing your time? Like the challenges and everything?
It was tough, right? Like she's young, she's in love, right? Like she has this hope and big vision for us, right? Like, I'm learning who I am. I'm, transitioning from 18 into the, adulthood. But I do say that like she made my bid easier and I felt privileged, right? Like when you in the States and there's like a group of people that's married and a group of people that's not married, you see the have and the have nots. It's literally that. It's literally like two different types of groups. And I was tapped into the haves, right? Like we had, visits, we had packages, we had love letters, we had phone calls, we had like, trailer visits. So it
All
was
that
like,
stuff is important for something to look forward to while you're doing
what?
your time.
Of course, you need all that.
Yeah. You
You know
guys
what I'm
end
saying?
up having any kids or?
No, we end up divorcing in 2014 as a result of her trying to become a cop. That was the primary reason why we divorced. Uh,
So that's
truth,
what, 8 years you guys are together?
kinda. Yeah,
Yeah.
7 and some change. Yeah, she rode out tough like 6, maybe 6, almost 7 years. It got rocky at some point. But I think around 2014 when we officially divorced for her to get into law enforcement. That was like the reason why we got divorced, but we would have still together. Truthfully, to be honest, I like knew that was my way out, right? Like I did love her, but I know I wasn't trying to come home and be tied down. Like, see, I started thinking sharp early on. Remember I said I came in at 18 and was thinking that consequential thinking. I already knew like going to jail for 13 years, coming home married at 30. Like I just knew that that wasn't going to be like a smart move. Like, so I kind of took that opportunity. And then some things happened because we had to have a distant relationship, and that just broke everything down. And then in between that breakdown, trust was broken for certain things that happened. And then I kind of got connected with my other ex. And then I moved on to other situations. And I was fortunate to always have some kind of like wave, you know what I'm saying? My land was never dry.
But I've seen you also talk about like you always have love for her because you know that she really did hold you down, like for the most part, you know.
Yeah, we friends. Like we not friends now, but we kind of like cordial. She works, in she's one of the partnered institutions that my organization is partnered with. So we in the work that we do now, we're cordial in that way. But we're not friends, and we just more like a cordial.
You know, I've interviewed a lot of people that have done time, and you know, a lot of them say like it's unrealistic to expect somebody to hold you down for that long of a bit because of like women need love. They get lonely. It's tough to make that ride up to visit all the time or to be like under that kind of stress while you and then you go home and you're dealing with real life like the bills and like all the stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a tough thing for anybody.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, man. Like for us at the time when you in it, it's not unrealistic. You're like,
Right.
look, you could do you, just come take care of me. Like some dudes try to negotiate. But if you think about it, man, like putting that kind of pressure on any person, like where they obligated to take care of you is unrealistic because like you just said, the demands of life, the need of love, right? Like and also the pressures of the system. So not only do you need love and the demands of life, but then the pressures of the system is like pushing them away. They got to come up there, sometimes get turned around, get treated like shit, right? Like they come on the visit room. Y'all might get into an argument because you going through some things. Like now you making her experience like, yo, it's so much that we don't understand at the time. But I tell you, I know some men that had women that ride for 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if they did it faithfully or not, but they rode 20 years, 25 years. There's some beautiful love stories. I mean, so it's possible. It's not unrealistic. It's just it's unfair to put that
Mm.
expectation on anybody.
One thing I heard you talk about before was like when you're locked up, you become like a unexpected bill to your family. Like you know, and that's something that they wasn't planning. So I feel like you've been able to see both sides of it. Like while you're locked up, like you may feel like people are not there for you, you know, because life goes on the outside of the
For
walls,
sure.
you know what I mean? But for you, you have so much time to think about things like, you know, how come I'm not getting calls? How come I'm not getting letters? Or, you know, these different things. But then you also understand the other side of it that man, like everybody has problems still,
For
regardless. Life
sure.
still happening.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, for
So
sure.
so take us through that. Like, how did you realize that?
Um, I mean, what being with my ex-wife kind of gave me a reality, like an insight, right? Like being with her and kind of seeing the struggle. Mind you, she's young. She's in her late teens and early 20s and stuff like that. managing life, school, career, family. You know what I'm saying? So I knew that what she was doing for me was something a lot of my own family couldn't do for me. Right? I knew the amount of money she was spending on a package that my sister couldn't afford. You know what I'm saying? Like I start to understand that I'm blessed for her support because some of my family can't do this. You know, when you're traveling 3 hours, 4 hours on a bus, it costs money to get there, it costs money to get on the bus. And that's just the monetary expenses. But what about the social, costs, right? Of the people she got to deal with and the stress and then, I mean,
Time.
there's too much time, all that, right, goes into it. So I start to understand. That's why I appreciated it. You know what I'm saying? So I learned that early on because she supported me heavy. You know what I'm saying?
For those of us that never been to prison, right? Can you give us like a detailed explanation of what prison is really like?
Hmm. A
Because I know you've
detailed
been locked up in
explanation.
a different places too, so it's like the
Yeah, yeah,
experience
yeah.
is different depending where you locked up to.
I feel like prison is a micro example of the streets, right? Um, it's not much different. It's just in terms of how things operate, right? Like you got the gangs in there, you got the segregations, you got the drugs, you got the leaders, right? But the way I look at it is like this, because I talk about this for work. You got three types of groups of people. You got the leaders, you got the lions, and you got the lambs, right? And you decide what your bid's gonna be on based on who you are. You know what I'm saying? So the line for me, the lambs are the ones that follow the trends, that's influenced, that's manipulated by the lions. They might be the ones that's impressionable. They might be the weak ones that they preyed upon. The lions are the ones who's like dog eat dog world. That's the lifestyle they live. They on gang time. They oppressing, right? They looking, right, just to come up on their own lambs or their own leaders. I mean, or they going against other lions, right? And then you got like the leaders. And I feel like that's me and many others who don't, we're not lambs. We don't conform to the lion mentality. We lead ourselves, right? And we respected by both, right? So
Mm.
I ain't got to press my brother for me to be respected. I'm going to hit the books, get my weight up, and still move militant, educate myself, right? And I felt like it's very few, but you start to see like you meet more and more people who are leaders, right? Some of them might have transitioned out of the lion mindset and then became a leader. You know what I'm saying? Um, and that's really how you can see like the bid because those different types of groups they engaging every day with each other in a very small space. You know what I'm saying? And it's tough because it's kind of like it's an oppressive environment, right? Like in order for the lion to exist, he got to prey on the land. You know what I'm saying? The leaders always haven't engaged those different types of groups. So it's like you got to kind of like make your bid what you want. I feel like your bid is what you make it. When you wake up every day, you got the same 24 hours as your fellow, right? What you do with your 24, it determines the outcome of your bid. Some brothers is getting up and they hitting the law library for 10 of those hours, hitting the gym for 5, getting on the phone for 3, go back to their cell. Some brothers is in a cell all day reading, staying away from everything out there. Some brothers on the phone all day, talking to their loved ones. Some of them out in the yard trapping, extorting, beefing. Some brothers in the weight pit all day. Some other brothers in education, programming. You choose what you want. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like prison is what you make it based on what is given. And there's a lot there, right? You just got to kind of, for me, I was fortunate to have like my visionary skills, right? Where I was able to kind of like map my life out in prison. I want to be like this person. And my lane was I want to work out. I'm going to stay away from all the politics. And with everything going on, I'm going to get my mind right and I'm going to stay out the way. You know what I'm saying? Here and there, I'll go outside. I mingle with the bros. I move around. I tap in, just like I do in the streets now. You know what I'm saying? I go to certain hoods, say what up, make my presence felt, but keep it pushing. I'm not there for long. You know what I'm saying? So you got to kind of like, it's really just another experience of life, but it's more in confinement that puts you close to things that you rather not be next to, and ultimately the choice is yours.
I've had people describe prison as slow torture. Like the time just seems to move so much slower in prison. Like out here in the in outside of the walls, it's like it's almost like you can never have enough time. There's so much stuff you got to do every single day. You know what I mean? It goes so fast, but like they say in there, it's like I could go to the yard, I go here, I go there, and all of a sudden it's like, dang, only 30 minutes pass. You know, you feel like you did so
Yeah,
much, but like it's like so slow.
that's true. But it all goes back to what I said is what you do with your time, right?
Right.
So time is slower than the real world, no matter what you're doing with your time in prison. So I'm gonna make that statement first. But before I turned around, I had 13 years and I was home. You know what I'm saying? So my time did fly because I was doing things with my time, right? And one of my, presentations, I'm like, I ain't just do time, or I ain't just serve time. Time served me. When time serving you, you kind of controlling that narrative, right? Yes, there's moments where it's slow. Yes, there's moments you're gonna wake up and be like, damn, it's only 2014. I got 4 years left. That's true, but time is really what you make it, man. It's not really a real thing. So when people say it's torture, it's because they might have spent a lot of time having a time to them. You know what I'm saying? And it's again, it's all a relative experience. That's a fact. But it is tough. Don't get me wrong. Time could be torturous for any person, no matter how fast or slow it's going for you, because you're waking up every day experiencing the same shit, right? But when I look at it now, and I'm like, damn, it just was 13 years of my journey, right? Like I start to see like things happen actually really, really fast. You know what I'm saying? When you in the moment, it's slow. When you look back at it now, for me, it's like has a different experience.
Mm-hmm. And you ended up like doing like what, like 4 months in the box, right?
Almost, yeah,
Almost 4 months.
yeah,
Um, what is that experience like of being in? Because like for you, you were by yourself in the box. Because I've heard other times people say that
yeah.
they've
Bunkies
served
and
time
stuff.
in the box with another person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mine was in regular box time. Um, yeah, it was another experience for me to realize consequential thinking, but more like emotional kind of like thinking, right? Like making emotional decisions. So my situation was over a dude just, violating the moment. I could have found another way around that, but you know what I'm saying? And I lost almost everything. I was just about to get into college. I was getting trailer visits. I was closer to home. You know what I'm saying? I lost all that in just that one swipe, right? Son told, right? Another situation, but this was directly something I did. And that was another moment, man. And there was a threat of him pressing charges, right? So that was another moment for me to like, you can't like you want to do this other bid you're trying to create for yourself. You was creating that reality. And here it is, you just threw it all away based on these choices you made. So for me, it was another learning curve. It was another moment to sit back and reflect and kind of open up my eyes and like make sure like I came out of that. You know what I'm saying? And then if I had to be honest, back to the badge of honor, at least I felt like, yo, I experienced box time. It's something
Mm-hmm.
like, at least I know I've been there, right? It's another stamp on my history, right? But it's none of that's anything to celebrate. You know what I mean? It's all tied to stupid decision making.
But like, how would you describe like what is it like being in the box though? Is that like is it really like they don't give you any light? They
Oh,
don't like, you know
that
what I
shit
mean?
is
Like
that's torturous. You're not eating right. You're bored. A lot of time on your hands. Like you interacting with your neighbors, they interacting with each other. You locked in 24/1. Like you literally like it's a reality check. You know what I'm saying? They take everything away from you. You have no property. You know what I'm saying? You get skinny. You turn pale. Like
right,
that's
because
a
we
torturous
need
experience.
vitamin D as human
Yeah,
beings. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like it's so important to us.
Yeah, you lose weight, you turn pale, you not sleeping right, your sleeping pattern is all off. Like your whole reality that you created to cope with your already messed up reality just got taken away. Now you got to cope with, create a whole new system, right? So you kind of reprogramming yourself to deal with this new reality. So nah, it's definitely torturous. I ain't gonna lie, like, cause there's some trays you couldn't even eat, and it was terrible, bro.
You know, in outside of the walls, especially when you live somewhere that is so busy, like New York, right? It's always go, go, go. Like you on go time. Like, you know what I mean? A lot of times I feel like for us, we we don't take the time to really reflect with ourselves, to check in what's going on. But in prison, that's all you have is time, really, you know, to do that.
Hmm.
Did you find yourself really reflecting on kind of like a lot of different things that you didn't think about previously?
Facts, facts. I think thinking about life in general, man, like, what could I become like, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? I never gave myself a fair chance. You know what I'm saying? Thinking about relationship with my family, kind of appreciating those things more. A lot of times thinking about what is my future gonna look like, right? So now I know what happened in the past, but where am I really going? I never thought about those things before. I never thought about foresight, like how do I build that? How do I see into the future? What do I become? What is my life gonna look like? When I get home, how do I prepare for that? So I became such a forward thinker because, like I said something earlier, like I said, like just get it over and keep it pushing. And when I do that, I kind of want to bury my past and keep pushing towards the future. So I became such a forward thinker as a way to cope with my present and not think too much about my past. So my reflection was thinking about some of that, but more or less looking forward.
Because you just said that like you feel like you never really gave yourself a chance, right? Like a fair chance. Because earlier you also said that like you're like a nerd on the low. So
Yeah,
like you it's like, you know, in life it's like about what you choose to water, what you choose to nurture, right? Different parts of yourself and everything. So it's like in the beginning you were really nurturing that street side of you versus like kind of like you really being in books or like you wanting to be in that way.
yeah. I mean, I kind of learned that I was a nerd more like in my bed, right?
Mhm.
Not really like I knew my talent when I was outside. But I didn't really go hard to like. I mean, I was trying to finish school right before I got locked up. Like I was in the program. I was trying, but I feel like I ain't go try. I ain't try hard enough. You know what I'm saying? I was like doing it just to kind of check it off my list. I never gave myself that real opportunity to like really put myself in a position, right? So because I was always looking at the other way out, and I got locked in on that way. So I never gave myself a fair chance in that way.
What would you say is like the most traumatic thing that you witnessed while being locked up?
Traumatic. I think I told this story on Dogs in the Yard. One of the, I mean, I seen knife fights, I seen dudes get cut. But I think traumatic was like a real police beat down. You know what I'm saying? Think like I'm always gonna refer to that story because I was like what 19, and the fear I felt from like 60 big white boys, just picture an army of dudes with sticks out, batons, and then they ultimately take this one young boy and they kind of just like break him up bad, and you can't do nothing. You literally limited, and then you can't turn around, like you suicide mission, right? Um, that
Do you know
moment for
why they
me,
did that to him?
yeah, he ended up cutting the old timer over some words that they had. It was a stupid political thing. Yeah, old timer said the young boy was messing with a gay dude, and um, the young timer wasn't having it. Song cut him. They got the rocking, and police wanted the knife, or they wanted the yeah, they wanted the weapon, and they was just breaking them up. But what I heard was like just shrieks and screams, and you know what I'm saying, like it was real. It was real.
So it was like you guys all were facing the wall during that happening, and there was like nothing that you could do but listen to him and cry out in pain, basically.
Yeah, yeah. It was like 6 to 1, and it was like maybe 30 of us. I'm around a bunch of old timers, some solid dudes was there. It wasn't like, you know, we ain't have it like, the heart to do it. It's just like it's just you gotta like this is a moment in time, right? Like son wasn't trying to give it up or whatever the case is, and like, yeah, you facing the wall and they got you like stretched out and they make you come back real, real far. So now you know if you fall, they gonna jump on you. So imagine you trying to hold your arms and they stretching all the way out. And your arms, I remember that moment. I was like, yo, this is crazy. And I was still young. That was like a joke right there, like a culture shock. Like, oh yeah, you in prison. That's Comstock. That's gladiator school. Anybody know about Comstock? It's a different world than like a Sing Sing. You know what I'm saying? So it basically, yeah, that was my first moment that I could feel like traumatized me.
So what ended up happening to him? Did you see the kid
And
after?
nah, I know he was sent to the emergency room and all that, but I don't know exactly like
It's
the outcome.
crazy. In your time,
Or
did you see like CEOs get away with a lot of dirty shit?
hell yeah, hell yeah. That's the norm in there too, right? Like that's the doggy dog world that the Lions is responding to too, right? Like that's the norm. You know what I'm saying? There's and then you think about the stories that is also superseding the reputation of corrections, right? Like them burying dudes, you know what I'm saying? Them cuffing dudes and throwing them down the stairs head first, kicking nuts in, right? Like you hearing all these stories, right? So like when I got to Comstock, like those stories were ever present because some of the CEOs that were there were still there, or the ones that were said to have done that were still there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Because you hear
it's
stories though that like the CEOs is more dirty than the police.
equally, yeah, equally, yeah. Law enforcement inside and outside is tough, man. They corrupt, man. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy. So you were talking about you were doing, you going to school, right? Like how long into your bid before you started pursuing your education?
2013, 14, I got into school. No, 2013, I got into
So like
school.
8 years in,
Yeah, I mean,
pretty much.
between that, I was always reading. I got into programs. I
So
just
self
got,
study. You were doing a lot of
yeah,
self study
I
previously.
tried to get
Okay.
into I was almost in the college program, but that's when I went to the box and I messed the situation up,
Mm.
2011. So I'll say 2011, I kind of pursued education. But 2013, 14 is when it really like upped it. I was really in a program and like really, really like locking in.
In the beginning of your bid, were you like not focused, not trying to be productive? Like, were you just like kind of getting a feel of the land and the experience?
Exactly. Tried, doing stupid things and getting caught. Um, yeah, like early on, trying to get a feel of the land. And I think I always was, again, I came in as an observer, you know what I'm saying? So when I got caught doing some stupid shit, I was like, this ain't for me. I can't, I ain't doing that. And then, but I always, again, though, I always like figured out how to make my time productive. So when I was reading something, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't really taking my like production, my self production serious until a couple years in.
Got you. Okay. And then you ended up getting an undergrad degree in prison, right?
Yeah.
And that was in what, sociology or
Social studies.
social studies?
Yeah, with a kind of like a heavy focus on fashion, but my
Mm.
background was in social studies.
So, what made you want to pursue that?
Well, I think the education became, I mean, shout out to my ex wife. She had got her degree at 21. So while I was married to her, like I always wanted to kind of match energy and kind of like, do my thing. Plus, I tapped into that nerd that I said, and I kind of knew I wanted to, like in my mind, to level up, you need to get your education. That was like
Right.
the key thing, right? You do all your mandated programs. You can't work out all day and be brolic and no brains, right? So me, like, you gonna get your education, right? That's what the lane I was pushing toward. So education became a way out, and it became like my true first love. I ain't gonna lie, like the academic space became something that like I really fell in love with. So me knowing it was like my way out to better myself, that's what pulled me in. What kept me in was I fell in love with the process, the things I was learning, the mind opening, right? Like learning how to speak better. Like, at one point I couldn't speak in front of a crowd. I was nervous as hell. I used to stutter, now I hold whole seminars and stuff like that. So I was building that person early on. And then I got hungry. Like I started seeing a version of myself. And it was like, in order to become that version, I got to continue studying, continue learning and building myself and getting my mind all the way right. You know what
Do
I'm
you
saying?
feel like through the education, like you started to see the world different?
100%. 100%.
Because a lot of times it's like people all they know is like the block, like that's all they see.
Facts.
They some people have never even left Brooklyn or left, you know what I
For
mean? Like
sure.
these certain things, right? So like did you find it almost like, because I guess like for a lot of people, I hear in a place where you don't have freedom physically, they find freedom in their mind.
100%. Yeah. Through therapeutic things, through the arts, through creativity. My freedom was in like education, right? Because I got to understand another world. I was able to understand history, understand like just the global politics, right? And the more you learn, the more information you receive, the more your mind opens up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was in a liberal arts school. So they teaching you all aspects of education, from literature to history to mathematics to science to, culture, anthropology, the social sciences, right? Like you're learning, and it's the nerd in me is like in love with that, right? Like, so I'm like all the way tapped in. And then I start to say, okay, then I'm in a space, no lie, right? Like a lot of the brothers I was in the space with were really smart. Like these dudes are sharp dudes. So I always felt like I was the pup in the room. I'm like, yo, I can't keep up with these dudes. These dudes are smart. They know how to talk. They reading the material. They writing great essays. They doing great presentations. So I felt like a pup, and that insecurity in me made me go hard. You know what I'm
It
saying?
drove you.
It drove me. I'm like, yeah, nah, I ain't gonna be the pup. You know what I'm saying? So I started to go hard. So now education became me versus me. Until I became one of those dudes, and another person feel like he the pup. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
How bad would you say the food is in prison?
terrible, to the point that if you know about special diet, right? Dudes do everything they can to get on special diet, or they bust plays to get food out the mess hall, or they just don't go to the mess hall at all, right? Food terrible, bro. Like it's not real food. It's soybean. It's disgusting. It's chilled. It's frozen. It's disgusting. Or
I've had people tell me never eat soup in prison because like once you like to start to dig through there, like you might find like the roach legs and stuff like that, or like it's like a big old pot, people talking while they like spit and mixing it and stuff. They said like
yeah,
it's real bad.
that's interesting. I never experienced that, but I won't be surprised. It's definitely a dirty world, bro.
But then like the food that you could get in commissary is not necessarily healthy either though.
Facts. So you got to
Right.
rely on packages from the streets, right? Or fresh produce from the mess hall, right? Like there's ways you could kind of, curate your meal, but that costs money. You know what I'm saying?
Right. My bro China Mac, right? He did a video showing like how people cook in prison. Like, like special types of food, like people making the Jack Mac or these
Yeah.
different like recipes, crumpling up the chips
That's
and
my
like
bro right
bread and
there. He cooked for me for a couple times. That's the bro right there. He get busy too on the
yeah,
stove.
yeah. It's crazy like how creative you can get and work with what you have, right? It forces you to do that because of your limited
Facts.
resources.
Facts. You got to learn. You become creative.
Yeah.
That's 100.
So 2018, you end up coming home. What is the first thing you do when you get out?
First thing I do, my bros came to pick me up with my family. I got a video on my Instagram. We end up going to the diner. It's funny. I was like, y'all want a steak and eggs. Don't know why. I was like, y'all want
That's the
steak and
first
eggs.
meal that you want.
Yeah, see, let's go to the diner. They took me to the diner. They was like, why you want to go to a diner? I was very controlling. Like, I want a diner. Take me to the diner. I don't care about none of that fancy shit. And we went to a diner, bro. It had steak and eggs. And
What was that feeling like eating
I,
that for the first time?
I felt special because my bros is there. Like a lot of people came to see me on the come out, right? And we just did, man. And like, I'm also just watching, right? So, and now we ate. I took off the boxes I had. I had put on some fresh clothes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it shit was dope.
Did you feel like any anxiety now being out? You know what I'm
Hell
saying?
yeah.
Because like inside it's like you constantly kind of like on watch time, right? Making sure.
Yeah, nah, like after so much time, a lot of people experience like anxiety in different spaces, different places with different people. The anxiety of just having to like get your shit together, like, you know what I'm saying? That pressure of like, yo,
Right.
how am I gonna do out here? Right? Like there's a pressure on yourself of how am I gonna do out here? Cause then in my world, meaning the brothers that graduated they came out of this college program. Some of them doing good, 6-figure jobs. They already got a car. So you start to like, wait, am I going to be like him? And you start to compare yourself, and then you put pressure on yourself. And that ultimately led to what happened to me in terms of how I was moving so fast. But yeah, 100%. I'm in different spaces. I'm anxiety ridden in the barbershop, getting a haircut. Dude come in with a hoodie on. I hop up. I'm a little uncomfortable, not sure who he is. Like, you very on alert, right? Because you just don't know what's going on, right? So anxiety's kicking you from all different directions.
Did you end up going to see, some female friends like real quick after you got out?
For sure. For sure. The very first night, first
Sure.
night, I had a situation. I had a good situation. Word.
So you're on parole for 3.5 years, right? During that time, what was
3.5
that
years.
like? Being on parole, like how did you feel when it was finally over?
Well, by the time it was over, it felt regular because at the time COVID was involved and stuff. So I ain't feel like I was on parole. I had a good PO. And even when they
Mm,
transitioned her, I had a good PO. Like, I didn't have to turn myself in. I mean, I didn't have to go in. Mind you, when I came home, I was so focused. I was applying to a master's program. I'm in this program. I got this job. They like, oh, we ain't got to worry about this kid. Like, he's good. So I didn't even feel the pressures of parole. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody else did. That's just a fact, right? Like, some people got to report every week. I was good. At one point, they'll call me and you good, you home, everything good. All right, cool, boom. So by the time I was off, it was a celebration because of the fact that I'm off papers, but it wasn't like I felt any different.
right, right. When you came home, did you ever feel tempted to return to the lifestyle that
Hell
you came
yeah.
from?
Hell yeah. When I was, I tell the story like how my first year, I was like very adamant about not going back to the lifestyle. I knew that's not what I wanted. When I tried the lane of going to get my master's and it didn't work out for me, and I had my first breakdown, around that period, I was about to jump full head first. Like, I was already I was talking to some people about some plays. I was already trying to, like, you know what I'm saying, get my mind ready. I wasn't 100% motivated yet. I was like 85%, but that 50% of doubt was like, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I was about to make some moves, man. And we would not know who I would have been had I made those choices. You know what I'm saying?
Because it's so much easier to fall back to
It's a
like
call
previous
away.
habits.
It's a phone call away. Money's your motivation. Money's your problems. You're a phone call away of fixing all that.
You already know what to expect. You know what comes with that lifestyle. You know all the different things. I think that the scariest thing is the unknown, right? When you're doing something new, you pursuing this degree, you pursuing this, like going in this direction. How is it going to turn out? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
that's what's
yeah.
really scary.
Facts. And especially in the lane that I was trying to get into was fashion curation. It's like nobody in our world is in this lane, right? Like, this is a white man space typically, right? This is like the bougie spaces, right? So I'm trying to build a resume. I'm trying to get my stamps in that, right? So it was definitely unknown, unsure. And I came to the realization that fashion curation and my studies around it was more of a creative passion, not a
Mm.
career. You know what I'm saying? Not something I want to work and do, right? So once I came to that head, I was able to shift.
Right. Because like when you first came home, you ended up working for a congresswoman, right? Or congressman?
Congressman,
Yeah.
former Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney.
What were you doing exactly when you were doing that job?
I was acting as a constituent servant. So I was servicing like basic kind of casework for
Mm-hmm.
the congressman's office. So if anybody had issues, with their district, I was the one that would coordinate resources and connect them to certain things. So I had like a caseload of like 20 cases that I had to kind of like solve and find solutions for, and then update and things like that.
And then you were also a waiter, like at a nice restaurant too. So you were working two jobs. You were
Facts.
pursuing your master's degree, and this is where it all ties into a pivotal moment of when you had that mental breakdown, right?
Facts.
Take us through that. Did you have like an anxiety attack, or like what was the experience like?
I think for the weeks up into that, mind you, I'm going through the thoughts of like, yo, I'm about to make this move. I'm questioning my reality now, or my truth. What my truth was like, you gonna do this. Now I'm questioning that, right? So the whole up until that moment, and then days up until the moment, I was like feeling just like depressed. I was stressed. I was like, my shoulders felt heavy. I felt like I was walking with this heavy ass baggage, like, and I didn't want to hold this shit no more. I wanted to let it go. And that baggage was me being in school. That
Hmm.
baggage was being broke. You know what I'm saying? So I remember, man, that I come off the train and it's like all those days and all those negative thoughts led to this moment of me just like, just broke down crying. It wasn't even like an anxiety attack. I just like paused and like just started crying. I felt angry. I felt like I failed myself. I felt like depressed. I felt like, yo, what am I doing? I'm walking to school knowing I don't want to be here. Like, and it was just like that moment just parked me. Like, and I just started crying, bro. Just sitting there like, this ain't it, man. So all the feelings I'm trying to not face just came out through my tears. So it was, yeah, like a bunch of weeks or days leading up to this moment where I couldn't fake it no more. You know what I'm saying? I was trying to convince myself, like, nah, you could do this, bro. Like, you got this. You got into school. Mind you, the pressure for me was that, at least to my knowledge, I'm the first formerly incarcerated person in this program, right?
Mm.
So it's important for me that the school gave me the opportunity. And then it's also important for me to represent for my people. So I feel like I got a kick in this door. This could be history in the making right here. You know what I'm saying?
A
So
lot of weight to carry on
a
your
lot of
shoulders.
weight, man. And I just wasn't prepared to take on that weight. And I was holding it into that one day. It's just like, nah, this ain't it. So my breakdown was more like just a stop and pause moment and crying and really saying, yo, face the truth, bro. You don't want to do this.
So it
Word.
went from something that you wanted to do in prison because you pursued your undergrad to something you felt you had to do at that point, and it took like kind of like the fun out of it.
Yeah, it really wasn't easy because of, so if you know about like any social theory around how one can become their best version, their basic foundation has to be together, right? Like you have to have you have to have your basic needs met. You know what I'm saying? Your shelter, your income, your stability, right? If that's not met, you can't achieve nothing higher. You gotta.
Right.
So that was what my problem was. I was at the base level with no security around my basic needs. Well, I had shelter, but in terms of stability. So me trying to pursue education just was it didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense. I was not in no position for that.
During prison, did you ever have any of those kind of moments of you breaking down, or this was like the first time?
This was my first time. Prison, I haven't had those moments where I recall that I was like breaking down from my experiences. I mean, maybe thinking about my peoples and having a little moment of depression, but nothing too pivotal like that moment for me.
Do you feel like you held in everything in life that you endured and everything until like that moment almost like where you allowed yourself to?
Maybe, kinda, right? Like I think that was the first time I got to like think about the things I was holding on to that I never addressed, right? Been home those 10, 11 months, uh, thinking about all the relationships that I had and I lost. It was just a lot. Like it forced me to really think internally. You know what I'm saying? I started smoking again. I wasn't really a smoker. So like I started really like thinking about my life in another way. And I think I started facing some things that I really just, was leaving unaddressed.
Smoking cigarettes or smoking weed?
No, weed. I don't smoke cigarettes. Yeah, yeah.
It seemed like you had a moment of just being very overwhelmed by everything.
Perfectly said. Overwhelmed. You know what I'm saying?
So you end up leaving college, right? And what do you do then?
Pause for a second, right? I kind of had to really think about what I wanted to do. And I was like, everybody up until that point was already looking at me like a poster child. Like, yo, because before coming home, I had graduated. So people already hearing about my highlights, right? So when I come home, like, yo, you should talk to the kids. You should get into that kind of work. It was nothing I wanted to do. But then now I'm forced to make a decision. Where do I go next? If it's not fashion, what's going to be my next move? How can I get a job using what I do have in my experiences? So I started reaching out to my, relationships and my peoples and my network. And, I reached out to, simultaneously, right? I reached out to Dr. Casada, the former superintendent of the school district, while also organizing a male support group. Because now
Right.
I'm like, that was my passion. Like I just started wanting to do that based on my own experiences, but then simultaneously for work, I was reaching out to the Dr. Casada, the superintendent, applying for mad jobs. I stood up for like 2 weeks straight, applied for like 40 jobs, got only 2 interviews, didn't get the jobs, right? And then I'm networking, you know what I'm saying? And then I connected with one of who was like a mentor at the time. He got me my first contract. So I started working in the schools voluntarily, building my like curriculum. And then I used that for the first contract I got. I got the first contract and that kept me afloat for like a month. I applied for more jobs. I was just on the grind, bro. Like literally from late December, early January to like February, March, I was on grind time, touring schools until the pandemic hit. So the first 3 months of 2020, I was on grind time trying to figure it out, get into position. Never got into position until the pandemic hit.
So 2019, that's when you started the male support group, right?
Late 2019, early 2020. I always get those months, but it's somewhere between that period.
And so talk to us about toxic masculinity, because I feel like it's something I don't think people talk about enough. You know what I mean? Or people brush it off. As kids, I feel like we're conditioned as boys, like to not be allowed to really express our emotions, communicate effectively. And then like you see it in our relationships with women saying he won't talk to me, he's closed off, like what I mean. Like it's like with girls, they're like taught it's you're able to cry, right? And that releases a different form of emotion, like it releases a different feeling. Like for us men, it's like we express it through anger, through violent tendencies, and the way that you express that, it doesn't provide the same relief.
For sure, 100%. You don't get the same outcome.
Yeah.
Right? So what I realized for toxic masculinity is really this idea that we have to become masculine in a certain way, and that defines us as a man, right? So part of what you just said was like, we're not taught we can't cry. Even deeper than that, or just equally important to that, we're taught we can't communicate our issues. You know what I'm saying? The toxic masculinity don't even leave room for you to have an honest human conversation with somebody that you have a disagreement with. We're not taught to communicate out of, through our problems. We're taught to just take them head on, right? So for me, I was realizing what brought me into this world and made me put on my JO name, and was this mask I had to put on as a means to survive. That mask is like, and it's funny because I use this in my curriculum early on. Remember the movie The Mask?
Mm-hmm.
Remember when he put on the mask? What did he become? He became bravado. He became very like confident. He became this other version of himself that wasn't his true version. And then ultimately at the end of the movie, he was like a criminal. Remember that?
Right.
Right. So like the mask symbolically in that movie was just something that wasn't natural to someone, right? Is you had to put this thing on and become something else. So looking at it like that, I had to figure out a way to teach the kids there's this mask that you might be working on right now that you just don't know. And be conscientious of that mask, right? Tap into who you really are, communicate with somebody. It's okay to have a moment and be vulnerable. Like, you know what I'm saying? Toxic masculinity is like, it doesn't leave room for that. It's like it has this expectations of like, that's based on being tough, notions of what tough is, or violent, right? Or how you manage women, for example, you objectifying, right? Like that hyper masculinity is so toxic to the relationships, right? That's why it's toxic masculinity, because it's toxic to the relationships that really make you human. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's a level of programming and conditioning in our society, that causes a lot of issues. Like you were just saying, um, find out like who you really are. I always say like once you really know who you are, it makes life so much easier, especially if you're willing to accept who you are and just live in your truth, because like it's I feel like so many of us are fighting that. So many of us are angry, because we're not able to do that.
Facts. 100%.
Do you ever struggle with who you were and how you were conditioned to be? Like when you're growing up in the hood, you're taught to react within like 5 seconds. You know what I mean? Like not to like really think and handle a situation like through the communication. Like, do you find sometimes like if you choose to communicate instead of feeding into that ego, that it kind of like messes with you?
Nah, I think I spent a lot of time on like nurturing myself and like learning who I really am to the point that I'm confident. You know what I'm saying? In my work, like what gives me my competitive advantage as somebody who did time and is doing this work, trying to build community and movement is that I'm true to myself now. That's like, I'm confident because of that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have issues with certain things that the typical man may have issues with, So I spent a lot of time in prison and then even in my post release, post my breakdown, really analyzing and looking internally to the point where certain things is no issue, you know? We all deal with battles still. Ain't none of us perfect, right? Still have maybe some ego things I gotta work around, some trauma triggers I still gotta think about. That's a fact. I'm human. But for the most part, who I am, I've spent a lot of time working on answering that question. And then sometimes I'm sitting here trying to figure certain things out still, but I'm open to that vulnerability. I'm open to that space of not knowing, right? But I'm working on trying to find out. So I kind of been graced, blessed in that way where, I'm at a certain level of awareness. I'm tapping into a different frequency of, just thinking and being that, what I mean? I don't deal with the typical battles.
That's beautiful, man, because I think that, we need to normalize that more, where it's like it's not just like, oh, you're a man if you react in a violent way, but no, you're a man if you can handle a situation and remain calm, and you know what I'm saying, like not do these things that quote unquote feed your ego, like to show dominance.
Facts. Facts.
And I think that that's something that gets glamorized too much through the media and just society in general.
100%.
So you end up going to therapy, right? What did therapy teach you?
Well, I went to therapy twice. At that time, I say this often too. It kind of taught me to say yes to mental health and no to education. Right? Like it
Mm.
was okay for you to say to that pressure that I was talking about that I felt, where I was the first formerly incarcerated, all that, like that was all perceived. It taught me you're literally not dealing with facts. You're dealing with your own perception of reality, and that's putting this unhealthy pressure on you. And when you take that perception away, you can make better choices. So it taught me that when you challenge your lens and you remove your lens for a second. It's like putting on a pair of colorful glasses. You see red, you move it out the way, it's no longer red. And now you can make a better choice because you no longer have those lenses on. Literally is what it taught me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because there's a stigma about therapy and mental health, especially in the inner cities and minority communities, right? Like we often practice religion and prayer in place of getting professional help. But in recent years, it's getting kind of like more popularized for people say mental health, mental health.
Yeah, yeah, that's a fact. I think, and rightfully so, right? Like the system has designed these programs and types of services that has harmed our people. You know what I'm saying? Therapy has not always worked out for our people. And then also, when I talk to kids now, they like, I'm not trying to see no therapist. They ask me stupid questions, right? Like the antiquated traditional styles of social work or therapy has not been effective for our people. And that's all they know. We need to introduce them a new non-traditional form of therapy so they can understand therapy is not just what that is, right? So I understand when people have a resistance towards therapy because of based on what they only know. And it's true, it's not, the traditional style and system has been harmful more than actually good.
Hmm. All right, talk to us about the most important thing, man, and that's 914 United and all the amazing things you guys are doing in the community right now.
Yeah, nah, I appreciate that, man. 914 United, man, for those who don't know, first off, go check out our website, right? Go check out our work that we got going on IG, social media, all platforms, Google 914 United. Yo, we moving, it's a movement that we building. You know what I'm saying? It's just to give you the mission is it's a program-based mentorship nonprofit, right? Working to support young brothers that are caught up in the system, right? Impacted by child welfare, impacted by the criminal legal system, or those who haven't even entered those systems, but impacted by the streets, right? Whether it's families that are incarcerated, they're impacted by gang violence, gang, influences. So our work is trying to just support those individuals and their families so that they don't end up where we ended up at. You know what I'm saying? And we've been around 4.5 years. We started off as a young grassroots organization. Right now, there's like a team of 17 of us, including our board members. And we're growing, right? Like we're growing not only because our work is effective, but because what we're doing is different. We're bringing a more non-traditional approach to Westchester when it comes to people like myself who serve time, my team who serve time, or been impacted by people who serve time, right? Is using those lived experiences. And that is what influences and shapes the services that we provide, right? We have different programs that focus on professional development, personal development, mentorship, case management, helping people get jobs, and a whole list of things, right? Trying to work on addressing individuals' needs, helping addressing their interests. Right now, we working with the county jail in Westchester, detention centers, Yonkers School District. We also working with probation, the courts. We really got a lot going on, you know what I'm saying? And I think the core of all of it is that we're really trying to change the narrative, right? What it means for a young brother to first get involved in the streets and transition out, right? And become a success story, not become a statistic, right? Become a success story. Like we're trying to create that, right? We also trying to change the perception of people like myself and my team that did time, that would have violent histories and that came back out of it. And we really care about our community, right? Like we really want to change how people perceive us, right? So there's a lot riding on the movement. I think, how we show up, how we present ourselves, how we pour into ourselves, and how we give that back to the community. It's been what we've been focusing on. We've been fortunate that we had our first office location. We secured our first office location in February. We've been up and running
Ryan, I want
since.
to congratulate you on that. It's amazing, man.
Yeah,
You guys
man.
have
Thank
come
you.
such a long way, right? From I've seen you talk about it where it's like you didn't even know all these different steps of like the financial side, being financially transparent, securing donations and funding, like all this stuff. Like, it's a lot of work. It's not easy, and
Yeah,
you're basically doing it while you're learning. You know what I mean? It's not something that you had all the knowledge previously. It's like step by step. It's hard, bro. It's a really
that's a
hard
fact.
thing.
Yo, let me say this, man, that it's a business, right? So when you're an entrepreneur and you getting into the nonprofit space, what people tend to forget is the corporate part of it, right? Like there's still corporate structures. There's still the business acumen that you have to have, decision making on steering the ship, right? While also cultivating and learning and making mistakes and falling on your face, while also showing up and making it look good, right? It comes down to the leadership development, you know what I'm saying? And how that translates down to your team and how that translates into the community. That's complex right there, right?
Yeah.
So we've been blessed, man. I got mentors that I reach out to, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to my mentor, Lucree Ortiz. She's super vital in my growth. The support that I have out there in Westchester and beyond that I can, receive support. My team, we've been doing this together, man, and we've come a long way, as you said. So, what we are right now working toward, just, hopefully we can even see you there, man. We have our sneaker gala coming up this year, our second annual sneaker gala called Changing the Narrative.
Dope.
Last year, it was called Stepping into Leadership 2023. We had over 430 some people present. We honored our brother Styles P. This year we have a dope honorary guest, which is the brother from Earn Your Leisure, Rashad's pulling up. And then we have a bunch of other people from elected officials and just community partners, youth, family, and more. And it's called Changing the Narrative. And we got a dope honorary lineup. So I'm knee deep in preparation for that. And I don't know if you know this, I'm finishing my master's degree now. I'm actually in my second year.
Yeah, I know you still going to school while you're doing all of this. You know what I mean? Like running a whole nonprofit, and people don't realize that for nonprofit, you have other restrictions, other certain things you have to meet, legally in comparison to running just a regular business too. So it makes things even more difficult. So man, I just, the most respect to you for what you're doing. You know what I mean? It takes a lot to want to better your community. You know what I'm saying? And do things out the goodness of your heart. So I really, really respect what you're doing, man. And I want to shout out Blame, for linking us up.
Yeah.
Good brother, man. And is there, I just want to thank you for giving me your time today. So letting me help tell your story, man. Is there anything else that you want to say to the people before we wrap it up?
Nah, just want to thank you for the opportunity. I'm always honored to take up platforms and share my story. You know what I'm saying? And I think the results that you see in my story and my team, like Blame and Brothers, is that, we really are empowered by our experiences. It's our experiences. The sum of all of that made us who we are. And what we learned out of that is we take every moment serious as we move forward. We take every moment serious. So the movement is serious, the work is serious, who we are serious, and our community. You know what I'm saying? So just want people to understand that we really coming from a lived experience and taking that and leveraging that, to help change what we want to see.
And I think that's the beautiful thing, man, because I feel like sometimes when people look at, people that have gone to prison, they can easily cast them aside and be like, oh, your life is over. But it's not over. You're still, you still have so much that you could possibly do if people give you the opportunity. And I feel like what you're doing with 914 United, you giving people opportunity, man. And that's a beautiful thing. So salute
100%, 100%. And go check out our website. Go check out our social media. We got our next annual sneaker gala coming up November 20th from 6 to 10 p.m. here in Yonkers, New York, and 92 Waverly Street, a ballroom called Castle Royale. You don't want to miss this event. It's going to be a movie. It's going to be a dope night. So definitely tell your supporters to pop out, get their tickets, man. And, I'm hoping to see you there, man. We'll offer you a complimentary ticket, my brother. You know what I'm saying? So you can pull up and come see our community.
I appreciate you, man.